I was still clutching the bouquet of lilies someone had handed me at the gallery when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen, Mom, made my heart skip. She never called, not unless it was about something practical, like taxes or a reminder to wish Auntie Syra a happy birthday. But tonight her voice was different. It trembled, urgent and unfamiliar, as if she was holding back tears, or maybe something else entirely. "Come home tonight. We need to talk," she said. No explanation, no congratulations, just those 6 words. I could hear Dad in the background, his voice low and tense, and for a moment I wondered if something terrible had happened. But then Mom repeated herself, softer this time, almost pleading, "Please, just come." I stood outside my childhood home, the porch light flickering like it always did, the same cracked step I used to leap over as a kid. My heart pounded in my chest, a wild mix of pride and old, familiar hurt. Just hours ago, I was surrounded by strangers who saw me, really saw me, for the first time. My art exhibition had sold out in minutes. People I'd never met called me brilliant, visionary, even inspiring. For a fleeting moment, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But now, standing in the cold night air, all that confidence seemed to drain away. I stared at the front door, wondering if tonight would finally be different. Would my parents look at me and see more than a disappointment? Would they finally understand why I chose art, why I poured my soul into every canvas? Or was I just walking into another round of questions, criticisms, and that hollow silence that always followed? I took a deep breath, clutching the sketchbook I brought with me, my secret weapon, my shield. Whatever happened inside, I knew one thing. Tonight would change everything. And as I reached for the doorknob, I had no idea that a family secret, buried for years, was about to come to light. My name is Ayla, and I'm 26 years old. If you ask my parents, they'll probably say I was always a difficult child, restless, stubborn, and a little too sensitive for my own good. But honestly, I was just different. While other kids in my family memorized math tables or recited science facts at dinner, I was doodling on napkins, painting on the backs of old receipts, or getting lost in the colors of the sunset. My parents, both engineers, believed in hard work, logic, and stability. They built their lives from scratch and wanted the same security for me. But their idea of security felt like a cage. From as far back as I can remember, I felt like the odd one out, a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. My older brother, Amir, was the golden child, with straight A's, captain of the debate team, and an internship at a tech company by age 17. My parents beamed at his every achievement, their pride shining down on him. I was always in the shadows, quietly sketching in the margins. Art was my escape, my secret language. But in our house, it was just a hobby. Something to tolerate, not celebrate. I can still hear my father's gentle but firm voice. "Ayla, you're so talented, but you need to focus on something practical. Art won't pay the bills." My mother would nod, her eyes kind but distant, as if she already saw me lost and struggling in some far-off city. The pressure to fit in was everywhere. Family gatherings were the worst. Uncles and aunts would ask what I wanted to be when I grew up, and there would be an awkward silence when I said, "an artist." I learned to laugh it off and make jokes about being a starving painter, but inside it hurt. I felt invisible, unheard, like my dreams were just childish fantasies I was meant to outgrow. Have you ever felt that way? Like the people who are supposed to love you the most don't see you at all? Or worse, they only see what they want you to be? If you have, you're not alone. And that's why I need to tell you what happened next. If I close my eyes, I can still see the first dream I ever showed my parents. I was 6 and had spent the whole afternoon bent over a sheet of printer paper, my tongue poking out in concentration.
I was trying to capture how sunlight danced in the garden outside our apartment. When I finally finished, I ran to the living room, my heart pounding with excitement, and held it up for them to see. My father was reading the newspaper, and my mother was on the phone with my grandmother. They both glanced up and offered a distracted, "That's nice, Ayla," before going back to what they were doing. I remember standing there, the paper trembling in my hands, not sure if I should feel proud or embarrassed. That moment shaped the years that followed. My art supplies were always in the way. Paintbrushes dried on the kitchen counter, colored pencils rolled under the sofa, and sketchbooks piled up on the dining room table. My mother would sigh and gather everything into a box, tucking it away in the closet with a gentle, "You can play with these after you finish your homework." But homework never seemed to end, and neither did the quiet reminders that art was just a pastime, something to fit in around real responsibilities. School was my sanctuary. My art teacher, Mrs. Khan, saw something in me that no one else did. She encouraged me to enter the annual art competition, and I poured my heart into a painting of our city at dusk. When I won first prize, I was so proud I could barely breathe. I begged my parents to come to the awards ceremony, but they said they were too busy with work. "We're proud of you, Ayla, but you know how important your studies are." My father ruffled my hair before heading out the door. I sat in the auditorium alone, clutching my certificate and watching other kids pose for photos with their families. My older brother, Amir, was completely different from me. He was brilliant, focused, and always seemed to know exactly what our parents wanted. When he won the science fair, the whole family went out for dinner. When he got accepted into his dream university, my parents threw a party and invited everyone we knew. I was happy for him, truly. But I couldn't help feeling like I was always on the outside, my achievements invisible in the shadow of his success. The hardest part wasn't the lack of praise. It was the constant, quiet pressure to be someone I wasn't. I once overheard my mother on the phone telling my aunt, "Ayla's very creative, but you know how it is. Art is just a hobby. She'll grow out of it." I remember sitting on the stairs, clutching my sketchbook to my chest and fighting back tears. I started hiding my drawings, afraid they'd be thrown away or dismissed as childish scribbles. But the more I felt ignored, the more determined I became. I started keeping a secret sketchbook hidden in a shoebox under my bed. In its pages, I poured out everything I couldn't say out loud, the loneliness, the longing, the dreams I was too afraid to share. I drew my family, not as they were, but as I wished they could be. Smiling, arms around each other, proud of me. I drew myself standing on a stage, holding up a painting while the crowd cheered. Those drawings were my secret hope and my silent rebellion against a world that told me to be smaller, quieter, more practical. Looking back, I realized that sketchbook was more than just a collection of drawings. It was a record of who I was and who I wanted to become. My parents never knew about it. To them, I was just Ayla, the quiet, artsy daughter who would eventually grow up and get serious about life. But I knew better. I knew that one day I'd show them what I was really capable of. That day was coming sooner than any of us expected. I decided to apply for the local art exhibition late one night while sitting on my bedroom floor surrounded by half-finished canvases and a comforting mess of paint tubes and charcoal pencils. I had seen the call for submissions online. A small gallery downtown was looking for new artists for their annual showcase. My heart raced as I read the details. For a moment, I hesitated.
thinking of all the reasons not to try. What if I wasn't good enough? What if no one liked my work? What if my parents found out and told me again to focus on something real? But something inside me pushed back. Maybe it was all those years of being overlooked, or maybe it was the secret hope I had been nurturing in the pages of my hidden sketchbook. I decided to take the risk. I filled out the application, attached photos of my best pieces, and hit send before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not even Amir. This was mine and mine alone. The weeks leading up to the exhibition were filled with nervous energy. Every night after work, I painted until my hands ached, pouring every ounce of feeling into each canvas. I experimented with color and texture, letting my emotions guide me. Some nights I was so anxious I could barely sleep, imagining the gallery empty and my paintings ignored. Other nights, I let myself dream, just for a moment, of people stopping in front of my work and really seeing me. When the night of the exhibition finally came, I could hardly breathe. The gallery buzzed with energy, the walls lined with art from dozens of local creators. I stood in the corner, heart pounding, watching as people drifted from painting to painting. Then something incredible happened. People started gathering around my section. They pointed, whispered, smiled. One by one, red sold stickers appeared next to my pieces. Strangers approached me, their eyes shining, telling me how much my work moved them. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, not just as someone who could draw, but as an artist. But even in that rush of validation, I felt a bittersweet ache. I wished my parents could see me now and see what I had accomplished on my own. As the night wound down, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was my mother. Her message was short and urgent. "Come home tonight. We need to talk." My heart skipped. I knew somehow that everything was about to change. The drive back to my parents' house felt like moving through a dream. One of those strange, heavy dreams where everything is familiar but nothing feels quite right. The city lights blurred past my window, and with every mile, my mind replayed old memories. The first time I rode my bike down our street, the afternoons spent sketching in the backyard, the arguments over homework at the kitchen table. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. My heart pounded with a mix of excitement, dread, and something I couldn't quite name. I kept replaying my mother's message in my head. "Come home tonight. We need to talk." Was she proud? Angry? Did she even know about the exhibition, or was this about something else? I tried to imagine her face when I walked in. Would she smile, or would she give me that same worried frown she always wore when I talked about art? As I pulled into the driveway, the porch light flickered, just like it always had. The house looked the same, but tonight, every detail felt full of meaning. The faded welcome mat, the potted plant I painted as a child, the sound of laughter from a neighbor's window. I paused on the front step and took a deep breath, the familiar scent of my mother's cooking floating through the air. For a moment, I almost turned back, but I couldn't. Not now. Inside, the house was warm and bright, but the atmosphere felt thick with tension. My mother stood in the kitchen, nervously stirring a pot of lentils. My father sat at the dining room table, reading the news on his phone. Amir was nowhere to be seen. I hovered in the doorway, clutching my sketchbook and unsure of what to say. My mother looked up first. "Ayla, you're here. Sit, please." Her voice was softer than usual, but her eyes darted away from mine. My father nodded, barely glancing up. I sat down, my hands trembling in my lap. There was an awkward silence, broken only by the clatter of dishes and the hum of the refrigerator.
Finally, my mother spoke. "We heard about your exhibition," she said, the word catching in her throat as if it were foreign. "Your uncle sent us a link. It looks like people liked your paintings." I nodded, unsure how to respond. "It went well," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. My father cleared his throat. "So how much did you make?" he asked, his tone more curious than congratulatory. I blinked, caught off guard. Most of my pieces sold. The gallery takes a commission, but it was more than I expected." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Is this a real job now?" he asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. I felt a familiar frustration rising in my chest. "It's always been real to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been working hard, even if you didn't see it." My mother set a bowl of soup in front of me, her hand shaking slightly. "We just want you to be safe, Ayla. You know how hard life can be. We didn't want you to struggle." I looked at her, searching for any sign of pride or understanding. "I know you worry, but art isn't just something I do. It's who I am. When I'm painting, I feel alive, like I'm finally myself." She smiled weakly, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. "We're happy for you, really. It's just unexpected." My father put down his phone and finally met my gaze. "We worked hard so you could have choices. We thought you'd pick something stable, something with the future." I swallowed hard, the old hurt resurfacing. "I know, but I need you to understand that this is my future. I want you to be proud of me, not just because I made money, but because I followed my heart." There was another long silence. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We are proud. We just don't always know how to show it." But even as she said it, I could feel the distance between us. Their questions felt focused on numbers and recognition, not on the passion and struggle behind every painting. I tried to explain what art meant to me, how it saved me from loneliness, how it gave me a voice when I felt invisible. But the words seemed to fall flat, lost in translation. My father offered a half smile. "Well, if you're happy, that's what matters." But I could tell he was still unconvinced. I sat there, surrounded by the people who were supposed to know me best, feeling more alone than ever. Was this all I would ever get from them? Polite interest, cautious approval, but never the real understanding I craved? Have you ever had a moment like that? When your family only seemed to care after you made it, when their pride felt conditional? How did you handle it? Did you try to explain, or did you just accept it and move on? I wish I could say I had the answers. All I knew was that tonight, something had shifted, and I wasn't sure if it was enough. Just as I began to think that my parents might finally see me for who I was, the conversation took an unexpected turn. My mother cleared her throat and glanced at my father, who gave a slight nod. She reached for my hand again, this time holding on tighter. "Ayla, there's something we need to discuss," she said with a low, hesitant voice. "Things haven't been easy for us lately. Your father's company has been making cuts. He's not sure how long he can keep his job. And I haven't been able to get as many tutoring hours as before." My father looked away, his jaw tight. "We're not asking for charity," he said quickly, as if the words were unpleasant. "But you're doing well now. Maybe you could help out, just until things improve." The atmosphere in the room changed. The pride I just felt was replaced by a heavy burden of responsibility. I wanted to help, I really did, but I couldn't ignore the hurt of knowing my art mattered to them only because it could pay the bills. I glanced at my mother, looking for any sign that she understood how complicated this was for me. Just then, my brother Amir walked in, his face tense. He barely acknowledged me as he dropped his backpack by the door. Hey, he muttered, heading straight for the fridge. My mother's gaze followed him, worry etched on her face. Amir's been struggling at university. His grades aren't what they used to be. He's thinking about taking some time off. I felt the unspoken comparison in the air, heavy and clear. For years, Amir had been the one who made them proud, the one who never needed support. Now, suddenly, the roles were switched. I felt a mix of guilt and resentment. Was my success meaningful only because it could fill the gaps left by someone else's troubles? A memory flashed through my mind, a time when I asked my parents for help. I was 16, desperate to join the summer art program. I had saved from tutoring and odd jobs, but I was short on the fee. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my sketchbook open to my best work, explaining how much it meant to me. My father shook his head. We can't afford to waste money on that, Ayla. Maybe next year. My mother patted my hand, but her gaze was already on Amir's upcoming science camp. That night I cried to sleep feeling foolish for thinking they would say yes. I promised myself I would never ask again.
Now, years later, here I was, finally successful, finally seen as worthy, but only because I could provide something tangible. The old hurt mixed with a new sense of responsibility. I wanted to help, but I also wanted them to see me, not just my bank account. I took a deep breath to steady myself. I'll do what I can, I said softly, but I need you to understand this isn't just about money for me. Art is my life. I need you to respect that. My parents exchanged a glance, uncertainty passing between them. I reached for my bag, my fingers grazing the worn cover of my secret sketchbook. I had brought it with me tonight, unsure if I would have the courage to share it. But now, with everything out in the open, I knew it was time. What was inside those pages would demand a reckoning, one we had all been avoiding for far too long. I sat at the table, feeling the weight of my parents' expectations and my own mixed emotions pressing down on me. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of Amir searching through the kitchen. My mother focused on her hands, twisting a napkin into knots. My father stared at the table, his brow furrowed and lost in thought. I realized that if I didn't speak now, I might never find the courage again. Slowly, I reached into my bag and pulled out my old, battered sketchbook, the one I had hidden for years, filled with every secret I had never dared to voice. The cover was soft and worn, the corners bent from being tucked under my mattress, carried in my backpack, and held close on nights when I felt invisible. I placed it on the table between us, my hands shaking. "What's that?" my mother asked, her voice unsure. "My real story, the one you never wanted to hear." I opened the sketchbook to the first page, a drawing of our family sitting together in the living room. In the picture, I was off to the side, half faded, watching everyone else laugh and talk. I slid the book toward them. This is how I always felt, like I was there but not really part of things. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father leaned in, narrowing his eyes as he studied the drawing. I turned the page, showing them a series of sketches. Me as a little girl holding up a painting while my parents looked away, me sitting alone at the kitchen table, surrounded by crumpled papers, and me watching from the audience as Amir accepted another award. I flipped to a page filled with color and chaos, swirls of red and blue, jagged lines, and a single figure curled up in the center. "This one," I said, my voice trembling, "was from the night you told me art was a waste of time." I felt like I was drowning. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Ayla, I didn't know." I looked at her, my own eyes burning. All I ever wanted was for you to see me, not just for what I could do for you or how I could help you, but for who I really am. I spent years trying to earn your approval, thinking if I just worked harder and succeeded, maybe you'd finally be proud. My father's face softened, the lines of worry and pride blending together. He said, "We thought we were protecting you. We wanted you to have a good life, to be safe. We didn't understand how much this meant to you." I shook my head, the words flowing out faster now, years of pain and longing spilling over. But you never asked. You never tried to understand. You just assumed I'd grow out of it, that I'd be happier if I was more like Amir. But I'm not. I never was. Amir appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "He's right," he said quietly. "You always pushed her to be someone she wasn't. You did the same to me, just in a different way." My mother's tears fell freely. "We were scared. We didn't want you to struggle the way we did. We thought if we pushed you, you'd be stronger." I closed the sketchbook, my hands steady now. I am strong, but not because you pushed me. I had to learn to stand on my own. I had to find my own voice, even when no one was listening. My father reached across the table, his hand trembling as he touched the cover of my sketchbook. "I'm sorry, Ayla, I really am. I see now how much we hurt you. I wish I could take it back." For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was heavy with regret, but also something new, an honesty we'd never shared before. My mother wiped her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. "Can you forgive us?" I looked at them, my heart aching. "I don't know. I want to, but it's going to take time. I need you to try too. I need you to see me not just as your daughter, but as an artist, as myself." Amir stepped forward and placed a hand on my shoulder. "We can do better, all of us." The confrontation left us raw and exposed, but for the first time I felt like we were finally being honest. My parents faced the impact of their neglect and recognized the pain they had caused, not out of malice, but from fear and misunderstanding. As I gathered my things, my mother reached for my hand. "Stay for tea?" she asked, her voice hopeful. I hesitated, then nodded. Maybe this was the start of something new, or maybe it was just another false start. Either way, what happened next would determine if our family could heal or break apart for good. The silence after our confrontation was like nothing I had ever felt in that house. It wasn't the usual cold, dismissive quiet I was used to. This silence was thick with regret, confusion, and the pain of words that could not be taken back. My mother sat at the table with her face hidden in her hands, her shoulders shaking with soft sobs. My father stared at the sketchbook, his lips pressed into a thin line, as if he were searching for the right words but finding nothing. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. I felt an overwhelming urge to run, but I made myself move carefully. I gathered my bag and the sketchbook, which had finally spoken for me when I couldn't. I glanced at Amir, standing in the doorway, his eyes darting between our parents and me, as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how. No one tried to stop me as I walked toward the door. My footsteps echoed in the hallway, a reminder of all the times I had left this house feeling small, unseen, and misunderstood. But this time was different. This time, I had said what needed to be said. I had shown them the truth, even if it hurt. I reached for the doorknob, my heart racing. Was this it? Was this the last time I would ever come home? I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I wanted to believe things could change, that my parents could finally see me for who I really was. But a lifetime of disappointment made hope feel risky. Just as I stepped outside, my mother called out, "Ayla, wait!" I turned, surprised to see her in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't go. Give us a chance to make this right. I know we've made mistakes, but we want to try. We want to understand." My father joined her, his expression softer than ever. "We can't promise to fix everything overnight, but we want to start if you'll let us." I looked at them, my emotions swirling, anger, sadness, hope, and fear all mixed together. Part of me wanted to believe them and give them a chance. Another part of me was scared of being hurt again. I stepped out into the night, the cool air stinging my cheeks. I didn't know what would happen next. Maybe this was the start of something new, or maybe it was just another empty promise. But for the first time, the choice was mine.
What about you? Do you believe people can truly change? Would you give your family another chance after years of feeling invisible? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. The weeks after that night felt strangely quiet, as if the world was waiting to see what would happen next. At first, I kept my distance. I wasn't sure if my parents' promises were real or just another attempt to patch things up. Gradually, things started to change. It began with small gestures. One morning, my mother texted me a simple message. "Good luck with your painting today. I hope it goes well." It felt awkward and a bit stiff, but it was more than I had received before. A few days later, my father called. He asked me to recommend a book about art so he could understand what you do a little better. I could hear uncertainty in his voice, but there was also a genuine desire to connect. Amir surprised me too. One evening, he showed up at my apartment with takeout and an apology. "I know I wasn't always the best brother," he said while picking at his food. "I was jealous, I guess. You always seemed so sure of what you wanted, and I didn't. I'm sorry for not having your back." We talked for hours, finally saying the things we had both been scared to express. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was a start. My parents tried to engage with my world, even if they didn't always understand it. They came to my next exhibition, standing nervously at the back of the gallery, holding each other's hands. I saw tears in my mother's eyes as she listened to a stranger praise my work. My father asked thoughtful questions about my process, inspiration, and the stories behind my paintings. For the first time, I felt like they were trying to see me, not just the version I had always imagined. However, not everything changed. Some wounds remained, stubborn and deep. There were still moments when my parents slipped back into old habits, offering unwanted advice about backup plans or comparing my career to theirs. I learned to set boundaries to protect the space I had created for myself. I understood that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and that healing was a journey, not just a single event. In the gaps where my family couldn't reach me, I found strength in my chosen family. My friends, mentors, and fellow artists always believed in me even when I doubted myself. They celebrated my successes, comforted me during failures, and reminded me that I was enough just as I was. I leaned on them, grateful for the unconditional support I had always longed for at home. Still, I couldn't help but hope for more. I wanted to believe that people could change and that my parents could learn to love me for who I really was. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I came home to find a package on my doorstep. Inside was a framed print of one of my earliest paintings, the one I had drawn of our family, with myself faded off to the side. But this time, something had changed. My mother had colored in the missing part, adding my figure with bright and bold strokes. Tucked inside was a note in her careful handwriting. "We see you now. Love, Mom and Dad." I stared at the picture, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't a perfect ending, and it didn't erase the years of pain, but it was real. It was a gesture that showed growth, understanding, and a willingness to try.
Sometimes healing comes in small, unexpected ways. The people who hurt us the most can surprise us in the end. Sometimes the family we choose matters just as much as the one we're born into. But there was still one more surprise waiting for me, one final gesture that would change everything I thought I knew about my parents and about myself. A few months after that package arrived, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was lighter than I remembered, almost excited. "Ayla, your father and I have been talking," she said. "We want to commission a painting from you for our living room, something that feels like us, like family." For a moment, I was speechless. All those years of hiding my art and feeling like an outsider in my own home, and now they wanted my work to be part of their daily lives? I poured my heart into that painting. I chose colors that reminded me of childhood, warm golds, deep blues, and the soft green of our old backyard. I painted us together, not as we were, but as we were becoming, a family learning to see each other, to forgive, and to grow. When I finally brought the finished piece to their house, my parents hung it in the center of the living room, right where everyone could see. My mother introduced me to her friends as my daughter, the artist. My father stood beside her, pride shining in his eyes. Standing there, I realized how far I'd come, not just as an artist, but as a person. I'd spent so long chasing their approval, believing that I needed their validation to be whole. But the truth is, the most important acceptance was my own. I learned that my worth isn't measured by anyone else's standards. Sometimes, the hardest person to forgive is yourself. I discovered that forgiveness is a gift. You give not just to others, but also to yourself. It's letting go of old hurts, making room for new beginnings, and believing that change is possible even when it seems out of reach. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible or struggled to be seen for who you really are, I hope my story reminds you that you're not alone. Keep chasing your dreams even when it's hard. Trust your voice and don't be afraid to stand up for what matters to you. Have you ever had to fight for your dreams or struggled to find acceptance, either from your family or from yourself? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below and let's support each other on this journey. Thank you for listening to my story. I know everyone's journey is different. Sometimes the path to acceptance, whether from others or ourselves, can feel long. I believe it's never too late to follow your passion, heal old wounds, or start fresh. If my story resonated with you, or if you're still searching for your own place in the world, remember that you are not alone and your dreams are worth pursuing. If you found this story meaningful, please like it and share your thoughts in the comments below. I enjoy reading your stories and connecting with others who face similar challenges. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot to me and helps this community grow. If you thought this story was intense, just wait until you hear what happened when my best friend betrayed me. That will be in my next video. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, keep believing in yourself and keep creating your own story. I'll see you next time.